Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is Where Are They Now for the month of October. We're going to be going through the past 5 years of Octobers, picking 4 or 5 games from every single month to focus on, just going over where they are, what my opinion was, did they stick around for not very long, have they stuck around for years, just general conversations around these games and how time has fared for these games. I'm going to start with October of 2018, because that's when I started logging plays, and that's when I can actually take a look back at what I played. As usual, timestamps to everything down below, but starting off with the Edge Dawnfall. The Edge Dawnfall from Awakened Realms was possibly my first Awakened Realms game. I'm not sure now that I think about it, but if I had to think, I think the Edge Dawnfall was my first Awakened Realms title. I think it was. And I fell in love with it for like 2 days. And then I kind of kept trying to play it more, and found that over time it was a game that I kind of wanted to like more, but ultimately didn't carry it for me quite as much. I remember I got into it right before the most recent Kickstarter they had for that game, and I was intrigued, I was fascinated, I thought it was a great skirmish game, but then I ultimately I was torn. I liked the miniatures, I liked the game, I overall had a good time with it, but I didn't think it was one that would hit the table enough, and so it didn't stick around for very long, despite me being fairly enamored with it at first. Then there's Number 9, which is a game that I stuck around for several years. Number 9 was a little tile-laying game where you're placing tiles on top of each other, but they're numbers, effectively. You're placing these numbers that they're all shaped like numbers. They're kind of polyomino shaped, but shaped like numbers, and you're trying to overlay them, building up higher and higher. Fascinating scoring system, a fun little puzzle. It stuck around for 3-4 years. It was a good game that I really enjoyed, but over time, those kinds of games just don't necessarily stick with me as much just in the long run. Many of those. Some of them maybe do, but Number 9 did not. Then we have Antique Duellum, which is still around to this day. Antique Duellum has survived purge after purge after purge, and I don't play it as often as I used to, but every time I do play it, I'm reminded as to why it's sticking around. Antique Duellum is a 2-player game that has, from the designer of Concordia, of Matt Gertz, it's a fascinating push and pull of managing your rondel as you try to build up your civilization, attack each other, doing everything you need to do. It's very well done, very head-to-head, It feels like a tight battle every single time you play it. I really enjoy Concordia. I actually recently blinged it out. If you watched one of my Deluxification videos, I completely blinged it out. Very happy to do so. I think it's a game that's going to be around for a while. It doesn't get played often, because again, 2-player head-to-head isn't as much. The 2-player head-to-head area control that takes place in an hour and a half, 2 hours, isn't a more common thing for me. But when I do, it's one of the good ones to pull out and play. Then we have Alchemist in 2018 as well. I played Alchemist, and that is a top 100 game that I bounced off of hard. It's not often that I play top 100 games and have no interest in playing them again, and Alchemist is one that, for me, it feels like I should like it. It's CGE, it has great artwork, it's got a degree of deduction, it's got a midweight Euro thing going on. All in all, Alchemist to me feels like a game that I should love. And maybe if I played it again, maybe, you know what, I am open to playing again. I've decided I'm open to playing it again. I'm not going to seek it out, but if it's at a convention or a situation or opportunity, I'm open to playing Alchemist again. But I'm not in a rush to. I didn't love it. And again, I think all the things that it is are the kind of system that I should love, but for whatever reason, Alchemist didn't work for me. And then Battlelore. Battlelore, specifically 2nd Edition. Battlelore 2nd Edition I played in 2018, and I actually have a long history of trying to play Battlelore way back in the day. Battlelore is always so cool to me. The system of it, the cards, the tons of miniatures, and the armies you can build, the powers and abilities, the spellcasting, everything about Battlelore called to me. But it was a game that I played the original Battlelore a few times here and there, and when Battlelore 2nd Edition came out, I decided to dive into that and see if that would be a good opportunity to dive back into it and figure out where Battlelore left off for me. I like Battlelore. I played it a bunch of times. I don't remember exactly when it left or entered my collection, but I did play it a bunch of times and ultimately decided that while I do enjoy the Battlelore system, both the original and 2nd Edition, I've played both of those, ultimately it's not one that captured my attention as much. So while it didn't go away right away, but it did go away over time. In October 2019, we have a few over here. Tapestry is going to be the most interesting one, because Tapestry I've had a very strong up and down relationship with. I played Tapestry for the first time, I think in 2019, possibly, I don't know, but I really liked Tapestry in my first play. And I liked it a little less my second play, and a little less my third play. And I decided I didn't really necessarily need to play it, and so I moved on from it. I got it back years later to try it again, and I liked it, but I got it partially for the solo play, and I was like, you know what, it's good, but I still don't feel the need to own this one. And then I started playing Tapestry on Board Game Arena this past year, and maybe it might be a Board Game Arena versus in-person thing, I don't know, we'll find out. But Tapestry is one that I do plan on hunting down, hopefully with all the expansions at some point, to see where it is for me, because Tapestry has really grown on me over time, diving into more and more. I've played that game like, I don't know, 10 plus times on Board Game Arena this past year, and I'm really enjoying it. Although some games do play better online than in person, so we'll find out on that one. But Tapestry, I've definitely had a long up and down with this one. Then there's Spring Meadow, and Spring Meadow is one that I played a bunch of these games in Uwe Rosenberg's Polyomino series of games, and I liked all of them. There was a Spring Meadow, there was Cottage Garden, I want to say, and then Indian Summer. I think that was a trilogy of Polyomino games. I had all of them. I liked all of them. Ultimately, they didn't stick around for, I mean, they stuck around for a few years maybe, but they didn't stick around forever. Eventually, I got to a point where I was like, I just don't need all these Polyomino games. And while I still have some of Uwe's favorites, I still have, Patchwork, and I have Feast for Odin, and I have a bunch of other Polyomino games. Ultimately, Spring Meadow, Indian Summer, and Cottage Garden all unfortunately left. Ethnos is another one I played in October 2018, and it's one that stuck around for years, and they recently got a reprint of Ethnos, and I'm so uninterested in the reprint. I thought the reprint would be like an opportunity to address it, to make it look better or more interesting. See, Ethnos was always a good game that looked horrible, and then they came along and they just did a reprint of it, and it looks arguably worse. At least to me, it looks worse. I have less interest in Ethnos than I did before. I don't know what it is about the game. I should try it at some point, but visually it just doesn't call me at all, and it's a game system I was hoping that the reboot would pull me into it. But Ethnos is a game that I played for a long time. I really enjoyed the quick gameplay. I like the player count accommodation on it. I think it's a good game system that I had for 4 or 5 years, but I did eventually decide that it wasn't one that I was excited to pull out and play. It's always one that I had a good time playing, but I was never excited to play it, and that takes away from an experience for me. I find there's a bunch of games that fall into that mold for me. Games that I enjoy them when I table them, but I'm not excited, and so it's always a long jump until the next time I play it, and I just have too many great games that I am excited to play to hold on to those games for too much longer. Then we have Massive Darkness. Massive Darkness I played for the first time in October 2019, and that was the original Massive Darkness. I played the Massive Darkness 2nd Edition, or Hellscape, whatever it is, much later, but my first dive into Massive Darkness was in 2019, and I really enjoyed the system while feeling like there were room for improvements on the system. That's why I was very happy when the 2nd Edition came out, because I was already a fan, but a hesitant fan. I still have all my 1st Edition stuff, which feels like massive amounts of overkill. There are some games I own that are massive amounts of overkill. Some I can justify, some I'm happy with. Others are massive amounts of overkill. In October of 2020, we have a few other games. We have Creature Comforts. Creature Comforts, I played that for the first time. I played that with my daughter to cover for the crowdfunding campaign. Really enjoyed that one. It's not one that hits the table as often as I'd like, and I don't know why that necessarily is. I think part of it is my daughter, to a certain extent, this is the problem with Kickstarter and kids, which is when I back Creature Comforts, I think my daughter's a perfect age for the game. But then by the time it arrived, she was already playing more advanced games to a degree. I think she still enjoys Creature Comforts. It is one we've played, and it's one that I should pull out on table, but it's one that the nature of Kickstarter, me waiting 2 years for a game is not a big deal. Having a 7-year-old wait 2 years for a game does change the way they engage with it. So I still have Creature Comforts, still like it, don't play it as often as I would have thought. 1775 Rebellion is one that I had for a long time. I had 1812, I had 1775. I don't think I had the other one, maybe the Viking one. I don't remember, 1878 maybe? And there might have been another one as well. There's a bunch in this series over here. But 1775 was my favorite from the ones that I played. I had that one in my collection for years. Eventually it did leave. I don't remember the first play. I don't think 2020 was my first time playing it, but it did eventually leave, maybe in 2021, maybe 2022, I'm not sure. It's one of those games that I really enjoy. I think it's really clever. I think it's a phenomenally well done game that's greater than the sum of its parts. It's simple, it's elegant, it has 2 players teaming up together, a 2 versus 2 system that's really well done, but doesn't get played a lot. I find 2 versus 2 systems in general, team-based systems, don't get played a lot in my collection, in my game group, and so as much as I do enjoy 1775, as much as I am excited to pull out and play, it just is one that over time, over enough plays, I found myself feeling a little less excited about it as time went on. So good game, stuck around for a long time, but did leave. I will say this particular month's look back over the past 5 years has a lot more games that I didn't choose to keep over games that I did choose to keep. Then we have Blitzkrieg, which is another game I didn't choose to keep, but I love Blitzkrieg. I think Blitzkrieg is phenomenal. I played it in October 2020. I think it's a phenomenally well done game. The reason I ultimately got rid of it is because I found Caesar replaced it. Caesar, Seize Rome in 20 minutes, to me was a better version of Blitzkrieg, a more nuanced, more intricate version of a very well done system. I also like, oh my gosh, what's the pilot one? Dogfight. I also like Dogfight as well. I haven't reviewed that one yet, but the one play I got of Dogfight I enjoyed, so I'm excited to dive into that one more. But for me, Caesar was just Blitzkrieg, but better, and so I kept Caesar. I love Caesar. I love Blitzkrieg. I just like Caesar more. Then we have A Few Acres of Snow, which I can't remember if I got rid of it in 2020. I don't remember exactly the timeline of what, but A Few Acres of Snow was one of the first games I ever got into when I got into the hobby. In fact, it's one of the first games I ever played online, playing on a Yucata.de. I must have played that game, I don't know, 20, 30 times. I loved A Few Acres of Snow for a very long time. I found that over time, it is a game that is a little slow to get off the ground. It has a particular gaming strategy that I'm not even going to go into further to not ruin it for you if you like the game. But there's a thing about the game that can limit your enjoyment if you know about it. And then lastly, I find that it's a game that I usually do win. I've played it so many times that when I'm playing it with my game group, I'm usually going to go ahead and just win when I play it, and so it's less fun to dive into it knowing full well in advance that I'm likely going to win the game, and possibly it'll be a long drawn out experience anyway. So I think A Few Acres of Snow is fantastic. It's probably one of the first games that I got 30 plays plus in, but eventually it did leave my collection. I actually got back, so the October 2020 play was definitely an opportunity of me getting it back at one point, trying to dive back into it, and then it left, maybe a year after that or somewhere along those lines as well. Then we have Alien Trespass Odyssey, which I also played in October 2020. This one I played the prototype. It was after the crowdfunding campaign. They asked to send me the prototype so I can dive into it, so I could try it, and I did. And I thought it was incredibly well done, and also way too much work and rules for it to be worth it for me. I was intimidated by the game more than I was entranced by it. And so I did enjoy the play I got of it, or the plays. I got dive into prototype for 10 hours plus. So I did enjoy the experience I had with it, but ultimately it's one that I felt that after diving into it, I was like, this is a game that intimidates me, and I have so many campaign games coming that I don't mind not being entranced by the system. So, not one that was for me even back then. Then in October 2021, we have a few games. Some of them on the table over here. We have nope, don't have that one. Maybe we'll have others. I don't know. But we have Dog Lover. Dog Lover from AEG was the follow-up to Cat Lover or Cat Lady. Both of them are good systems. I'm kind of surprised that I own both of them. They are lighter gateway games that I usually play with my family, but they are ones that I still enjoy, and I still enjoy them enough to have both, which is a little bit surprising to me. I would think that I'd pick one. I don't like those games enough to have both, but yet I still do have both. Then we have Lords of Ragnarok, which has gotten a lot of recent attention. Lords of Ragnarok was a game that I really enjoyed playing. I have not played the final version, so I feel bad about it, but I played the prototype a bunch of times, and it's one thing in particular that's interesting, and I talked about this at other points, but Lords of Ragnarok is a game that my first play of it, I was like, this feels worse than Lords of Hellas. And my second play, I was like, I see the potential. My third play, I was like, I love this game. And the tricky part there is that I've said for years that normally if I'm playing something not as a reviewer, not as a content creator, if I'm playing something as a general just fan of the game, I give you one play. You have one play to capture my attention, because I don't have time to chase the mediocre games to see which ones are actually good. Now, when I commit to reviewing things, it's different. When I commit to reviewing things for an audience, I do want to play it multiple times, so I inherently will see the game more. But I'm curious about Lords of Ragnarok, how many plays people are getting of the game, because if you bounce off this game after one play, I would have as well. I genuinely would have bounced off it after one play. It wasn't that I didn't like it, it's that I was like, this is just worse than Lords of Hellas. The more I played it, the more I started to appreciate what it's doing and how it's doing it. Granted, I have not played the final version, only the prototype. I am curious to see how this one holds up. Lords of Hellas, Lords of Ragnarok, they fall into a dangerous spot for me only because many of these games in these area control genre just aren't getting enough plays right now with my current group dynamic. The games I'm playing are a lot more 2 and 3 player games. The 4 player games that are good area control puzzles, those are just getting less attention in general, which means Lords of Ragnarok, when I finally do get it tabled again, it really does have to bring its full A game for it to be one that I'll continue to keep. But I remember really enjoying it. I think my biggest potential issue, my biggest concern around it was that while it was better than Lords of Hellas for me, it did so by becoming a bit more like Blood Rage, and I love Blood Rage. So whether it'll stay around or not, I've kept Lords of Hellas until now, with the hope that one of them will work for me, one of them will be the one that sticks around, but I don't know which one. So time will tell on that one, still up in the air. Then we have Skytier Horde. Skytier Horde is one that I played doing the prototype phase, really enjoyed it, and then got it and arrived, and I really continued to enjoy it as well. This is one that it doesn't hit the table as often as I'd like, but when I do want a fun little solo experience, it shows up, it gets tabled. It is a good, fun solo game that gives me that Hearthstone card experience. You could play it 2 players as well, and I do, but I get more plays of it solo because it's just a fun, good time. I really like the system. The rulebook wasn't necessarily the best, but it's a pretty simple game, but the rulebook doesn't necessarily capture the simplicity as well as I'd like, but I think Skytier Horde is phenomenal. I'm excited for the additional content they had in the GameFound campaign, so I'm excited to have more stuff show up, as well as a better box. I don't mind this box, but I do understand the complaints that people do have around it. Then we have Rolling Heights, which is fantastic. I played Rolling Heights in October 2021 for the first time, or somewhere around then for the first time, and then when it finally showed up, a year and a half, 2 years later, it continued to hold up. It's a great game. I do have some concerns about variability of the experience compared to, I compare it very strongly to Quacks of Quedlinburg Quedlinburg and Cubitos. They have the same core system, but Crax and Quedlinburg and Cubitos I don't like as much as Rolling Heights, but they are more variable than Rolling Heights. So I'm in that weird spot. I currently own all three of them, although Crax is more for my family. If I was picking, I'd probably keep Cubitos and Rolling Heights, but ultimately, I think that Rolling Heights is a fantastic game. I think it's going to be in my collection for a very long time. I very much enjoy that one. And then we have Paris, La Cité Lumière, Paris from Devir Games, which is a game that, there are some games that you just feel are criminally underrated. And everyone will have their own pool of games that they feel falls into that category. You'll have that game that's a 6.7 that you're like, this is gold, I love it. And I'm like, it's garbage, I know why it's a 6.7. And it's true over here. Paris is not a 6.7. Paris is, I think, a 7.4 on BGG, but to me it's a 5 out of 5. I love this game. I think Paris is incredibly intricate. And I will say that similar to Lords of Ragnarok, Paris, my first play of Paris, I was like, it's good, but I don't need it. My second play had improved, my third play had improved further, and it's just, my opinion just ramped up the more I played the game. And so it is one that, again, I actually think that 7.4 probably would have matched my initial instincts of the game, but the more I played it, the more I learned to love the system. It's a tile-laying game with polyomino pieces and just a degree of cutthroatness in a two-player head-to-head. If you like patchwork, but you want a bit more interaction and a bit more just cruelty baked into it, Paris delivers on that cruelty in such a satisfying way. You have to be prepared to be mean, and you have to be okay with having other players be mean to you, but Paris is one of my favorite games in my collection. It is just, it's golden. It's amazing. I highly recommend the Eiffel expansion. It gives you just more content, more variability to the experience, but Paris is a phenomenal game that's not going anywhere. Which brings us to October of 2022. We have a few games to cover over here, starting off with Innovation. Innovation was a game I played way back in the day, then I got the yellow version of the game, then I went back to the deluxe version of the game. Recently I did a 12x12 review of the game. Innovation has just stood the test of time for me. But it's not a perfect game, not by any means. I have a lot of complaints and critiques about the experience, but ultimately Innovation is a game that it's just stuck around. It stuck around for a long time, and I very much enjoy it. There's also going to be Babylonia, which was a tough one for me. Babylonia, I'm not even sure if my review of Babylonia went up. The tricky part about doing reviews is sometimes I film something, and then that filmed review might get pushed off because of more time-sensitive content. Because Babylonia, by the time I filmed my review of Babylonia, there's new stuff coming out, and so I always prioritize the new stuff over this game that's already, anyways, a year and a half old. But that means I think I've been pushing off my Babylonia review for like a year plus by now. But I think Babylonia is a phenomenal game. I had it, I reviewed it, I pushed off that review for a year and a half while I played it a few more times, and then ultimately it is one that did leave my collection. It's not one that I don't think is good. I think it's excellent. It's just, there's always excellent games, and there's always excellent games. It's hard to keep all the ones you want to keep, and I frequently try to force myself to cull games based off of looking at the games that I love, and then using that as the push to get rid of a game that I like. And so Babylonia is very much a game that I like. It's a 4 out of 5 for me. It's a 4 out of 5. 3.5 out of 5s, whenever I'm getting rid of a 3.5 out of 5, it's usually a little easier. Getting rid of a 4 out of 5 is harder, but sometimes I need that push, and for Babylonia, it is a good game. I did need that push. Then Mosaic. Mosaic I played in October 2022. I played it before then as well, but Mosaic is a great game that I really love. Mosaic, I have a lot of fun with it. The only thing I'm surprised by is I've gotten Wars and Disasters from Mosaic already, and I have not been compelled to even unshrink this yet, which bothers me to a degree. I should unshrink this and dive into it. But I love Mosaic. I think Mosaic is just a fun, good time. I think it plays well at 2. I think it plays well at 4. 5 slows down drastically. I would not recommend 5. But Mosaic it's a really good game. And I'm disappointed in myself that I think I just got this when I was very busy, and I just haven't dived into the expansion yet. I haven't played the expansion, so I don't even know if the expansion adds to the experience, takes away from the experience, or is neutral to the experience. But Mosaic is fantastic. Really enjoy and recommend that game from, Forbidden Games. I was going to say Colossal Games because it's the Colossus edition, but it's from Forbidden Games, not Colossal Games. And then lastly, we have Dreadful Meadows. Dreadful Meadows over here. This is another one that I played in October of 2022, covering that for the crowdfunding campaign. And this recently just showed up, a week or two ago. Very excited to dive into this one. I really enjoyed it. It's a simple, fun tile-laying game. It's one of those games that I do wonder if it'll hold up long term. Not every game can. The practical reality is you can't keep everything, especially if you're covering a lot of games and playing a lot of games. You're excited about things, but you can't keep everything. Part of me thinks it will stick around. It was a very fun system. I really enjoyed it, and the art's charming, the game was charming. It was fun, but it wasn't a great game. It kind of reminded me of Valeria Card Kingdoms. It was almost a guilty pleasure of an experience than a really good game. But I liked it. And so I'm excited to see what will happen down the road. I have the expansion for it as well. I do have some concerns about variability long term, but again, I'm reflecting my play from October 2022. I have not played this since it showed up, although at least in this case, I did de-shrink it. But that's what we have. 5 years of Octobers, 5 years of some games to look back on, where they are, where they showed up. I actually plan on doing an entirely different series. It's a new series I'm kind of planning on, it will be a temporary series, it won't be a long-term series, but a bunch of top 10 lists from like every year since I've been into gaming, of just going through some of my favorite games that I've kept and held on to over the years. Really looking at longevity over, you know, Cult of the Now and all that. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.